starting to be a thing. Al Gore invented it, if you recall. But then you had CNN, and you were starting to have CNBC, and you were starting to see competitive outlets, cable outlets, and the news cycle was starting to stretch, right? And so there were all of a sudden it had been a pretty for the kind of post-war period, had been a pretty buttoned-up little world where you had 3 networks and a couple of big urban dailies, and they drove the agenda. Right? What appeared on the front page of the New York Times was what everybody chased all day. That was on the nightly news, and everybody went to the bar. And we started all over the next day. And now, obviously, the world looks nothing like that. So I think by the early 90s, it felt like technology was driving a transition. And we thought we were in a very partisan time, right? When Bill Clinton was president and Newt Gingrich was Speaker of the House, we thought, wow, we were in a new era of hyper-partisanship, and how could it get any worse? Well, it has. So, as you guys have all lived through. So the answer is yes. So I think that technology has both been, it's democratized everything, including news, right? So you can both post information, you can post information that you find, you can respond to information that you read. If you have an illness, you can go online and research possible treatment options. You can find out what's the best food for your dog. You can find out what Lady Gaga, is doing today and how her dogs are. So, I mean, there's something really great about that, and people can search for what they want and what they need. And on the other hand, of course, with this deluge, particularly in the social media world, there's no longer a filter or a set of facts or a process that we agree on that establishes what is a fact, right? And into that, what's the saying? If nothing is true, then people will believe anything, or something like that. So, and I think we've entered into that world.
Those are all kind of media-specific factors, and I know we heard a guest from Dr. Toth this morning. Obviously, widespread decline in trust in all American institutions. I believe Gallup polls this every year. Last year, the only institutions that more than 50% of Americans said they trusted were the military and small business. Even police, organized religion, everything else below 50%. Congress was the only one in single figures, but the media is like a little above that.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, how much of it is the media and how much is
I think
society?
I think both of them are really dramatically affected by a couple of things. One is technology, right? And so that provides a lot more visibility and transparency, and a culture that promotes transparency. So what as we've gotten to look inside big institutions, whether it's the government and the post-Watergate world, well, that was a long time ago, or the Catholic Church, or the police organizations across the country, we have seen with our own eyes, we've learned facts or learned about things that have happened that shatter the expectations that we once had. So I think that's one very important thing. I think two, is information has moved around the world. People have had rising expectations, not just about their quality of life and lifestyle, but about their ability to participate, like that they should be at the table, they should be included, they should be part of the decision-making process. And so I think that's broken down the walls. Obviously, culture has changed dramatically, and I think all these are interrelated, right? So it used to be people had to wait their turn before they were allowed to raise their hand and speak, particularly in opposition to authority and to accepted channels of power. That's no longer true, right? Anybody with a phone can post a blog taking on there are no more sacred cows. We slayed those long ago, and so anybody can criticize anybody else. And so on one level, that's a democratization and a sharing of power. It's a way for people to participate in what we're supposed to be a participatory democracy. But the cost of that is how do we have institutions and are they durable, and how do we recreate them in the era of mass media, globalization, rising expectations, fast social change.
Julie mentioned your time in Hollywood. It's not related to like the crumbling of democracy or anything, but when you talk about the lowering the barriers between public figures and ordinary people, institutions and people not having, I think declining trust in the American celebrity is kind of the same thing, right? People don't have that separation where you only know what I want you to know.
True, but it's interesting because I don't know that that's decreased people's appetite to know more. Right. So it's interesting. I think celebrities are still. I think celebrity culture is alive and well, and it's not just movie stars, right? influencers on TikTok, or obviously music is probably the most universal cultural language that we have. And I think there's a tremendous interest in that. I think there's a sense that people can share in that. They can share the music that they like, or they can write a review of a movie, or they can have a comment on, what actor they like or don't like, and what film they like or didn't like, or, and streaming obviously has created a whole new world. And by the way, I think the exciting thing about being at Warner Bros. When I was there was, it suddenly occurred to Hollywood after however many years that people were interested in content that was about people that looked like them or looked like all their friends and neighbors. And all of a sudden there's been this explosion in diverse content. We still have a lot of work to do, but that was a really interesting, people all of a sudden said, no, if you put this on, I will watch it. I'm hungry for this kind of content that reflects something about my life and my values. And so that was really an interesting time. And so, there's threads and things that I think are positive, and storytelling has expanded, right? And it's expanded our understanding of how people experience the world, and that's wonderful. And again, the flip side of it is, how do you bring, some of these institutions were what brought us together as a society, right? Again, whether it was your church or your community, or, you were part of some larger institution, and now all those institutions, as you said, have less than 50%, positive ratings. They're not very credible. And how do we connect to each other in a world that's going apart in so many different directions?
Your job now is economic development in Sacramento at the state level. There's a lot of information out there about California's business climate, and I've actually always been a little frustrated that it's very hard to find any of it that isn't approached from some kind of ideological lens. I don't think that makes it malicious disinformation or anything, but I was curious to get your take on just the state of California's business climate, the truth or truthiness of the claims that we're driving businesses out and all that. Because there was a recent study at the Rose Institute at Claremont McKenna that did make a pretty solid case that we are some of the highest cost areas in the nation, at least for business.
Well, I think we are, without a doubt, very expensive. And California is not an inexpensive place to do business. And I see my friend Tracy Hernandez here, always reminding me of that. But all of you know that. You all are running small businesses or medium-sized businesses, and it's an expensive place to do business for a lot of reasons. I think the business climate in California is good. I think it can always be better. But I think the economy in California is unique and pretty extraordinary. So if you look at, we are the fourth largest economy in the world. We passed Germany, partly because of geopolitical headwinds, but partly because we are the most innovative economy and the most diverse democracy on the planet. We just are. And yes, some companies leave, and guess what never gets covered? All the companies that are starting. Right, so Fortune magazine looks every year at the fastest growing new companies in the world. 25% of them usually around, give or take, are in California, in the world, the fastest growing new companies. And why is that? We have a culture of innovation. We have the best higher education system in the world, anywhere in the world. We have, we can always do better, and we need to do better, but we have really robust technology transfer that goes from our higher ed. By the way, more Nobel laureates here, more patents here, more everything here. So sometimes that's not so good, but and so you have this really innovative economy, which is fed by our culture of welcome. We have I think it's like 25% of people here are foreign born, 23%, something like that. And guess what else about people, immigrants? First of all, we need them to fuel our economy. We need their ideas. Of the Fortune 500 companies, 40% are either started by an immigrant or a second generation child of an immigrant. 40%. That is an astonishing number when you think about it. And that's part of the secret sauce of our economy. We welcome people here, we welcome new ideas, we welcome different ideas, we welcome people who are different than we are. And sometimes that causes, sometimes that can be, it can also be challenging for everybody, but at the end of the day, it is part of the magic of California, and it's always been that way. California has been the most diverse place in one of the most in the world, and certainly in the country since the 1850s, when the gold rush brought the first wave of people from all over the place trying to find their dreams. And so that's the good side. We are also kind of the left flank of progressive, the flank of progressive governance. And so we try to balance, protecting communities, right, the environment, and trying to manage, and still allow for robust economic growth. We don't always get the mix right. We don't always get it right. It's a work in progress, and it will always be a work in progress. But I do think the rest of the country follows us, whether it's putting catalytic converters on cars, or making commitments to, transition to clean energy, or, or passing laws. I mean, Governor Gavin Newsom was marrying, same-sex couples on the steps of City Hall, and it is now widely accepted in this country, and it is the law of the land. So I think, if you want to know what's coming to the rest of the country, the governor likes to say we're the coming attraction for the rest of the country and even the world.